Welcome. I'm Scott Slade, host of Atlanta's Morning News on 95.5 WSB-Radio. You are watching the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series. This is the general election debate for candidates running for the U.S. Senate special election to fill the seat currently held by Senator Kelly Loeffler. Now, due to the number of qualified candidates, we've divided them into two groups, depending on how they're polling. In order to ensure everyone's safety, the candidates and panelists are participating from other locations, including their homes. The Atlanta Press Club gives a special thank you to Georgia Public Broadcasting for helping to organize the online debates. Well, let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order for this flight. Al Bartell, an independent, is a businessman and Vietnam-era Air Force veteran. Well, I don't think that's Al Bartell. Looks like Richard there is Al Bartell. Thank you. Alan Buckley is an independent. He's an attorney and an accountant in Smyrna, Georgia. We can see Mr. Buckley there. John Fortuin is a member of the Green Party who has 20 years experience in computer programming, analysis, and consulting in a variety of industries. Derrick Grayson, the Republican, is a veteran of the U.S. Navy, a community activist and minister. Annette Jackson, a Republican, is a realtor and was a candidate for Georgia State Senate in 2016. Deborah Jackson, a Democrat, is an attorney and served as mayor of Lithonia from 2012 to 2020. Tamara Johnson-Shealey, a Democrat, is a small business owner and a former candidate for Georgia State Senate. Valencia Stovall, an independent, is a small business owner and was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives in 2012. Kandiss Taylor, a Republican, has been an educator with the Appling County Board of Education for the past 17 years. And finally, Richard Dien Winfield is a Democrat and a philosophy professor at the University of Georgia. The Atlanta Press Club was not able to get in touch with candidates Jamisha James or Joy Felicia Slade. Candidate Michael Todd Green declined to participate. Now, let's meet our panel. Greg Bluestein is political reporter with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And Lisa Rayam is host and senior producer of Morning Edition on WABE 90.1. Now let's get started. In this first round, candidates will be asked one question. They will have 45 seconds to answer their questions and 30 seconds to respond to any rebuttal that might be necessary. I'll hold up a piece of paper letting candidates know when they have 10 seconds remaining, and will remind you audibly as well. For the full set of rules, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. Let's begin our first round. Greg, you get the first question to Derrick Grayson.
Yeah, Mr. Grayson, you state the claim on your website that you're both pro-life and pro-choice when it comes to abortion issues. So how do you square those two?
Quite easily. I am pro-life in that no child should be aborted. I am pro-life in that women have the choice, as well as men, to avoid unwanted pregnancy with the use of contraceptives. But let me add this. This debate is set up in a fashion to where there are the lessers and there are the ones that they want people to know about. There could be a better way to do these debates by, let's say, whittling down to the ones most desirable by the people. But by putting us in this debate, they are actually doing a disservice to the voters of the state of Georgia.
Mr. Grayson, thank you for your comments there. The Atlanta Press Club is doing what they can with the time they have, but we really appreciate your comments on that. Lisa, please ask a question out to Valencia Stovall.
Ms. Stovall, due to the pandemic, the faltering economy is certainly on the minds of a lot of people. As a small business owner, what would top your agenda to provide additional relief to the many business owners in this state who are on the brink of bankruptcy or foreclosure?
Well, definitely, when the money came down from SBA, there were many small businesses, micro small businesses that weren't able to pay. And so one of the things that I will be pushing for is the changing of the classification code to include micro small businesses. Our small businesses are our foothold and our stronghold for our communities across the state. And they are also the ones who are actually hiring the most people in our communities. So when those businesses fail, they also fail our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. Greg Bluestein, please ask your next question to Al Bartell.
Mr. Bartell, you better than most know how hard it is to run as a third-party candidate or a candidate without the means to be in a higher publicity field. You've run for state senate, public service commissioner, lieutenant governor, mayor, city council president, governor, U.S. Senate. What would you do to level the playing field if you win?
We have to redesign the public policy to have people get thousands and thousands of signatures to be able to qualify. It does not have to be that difficult to get 40 or 50,000 signatures. It would take over 200 or 300,000. The General Assembly could change that law such that a few thousand signatures, or no signatures at all, would be what available to get a public person's name on the ballot to run for office. Given that we're in the age of technology, it is time for that public policy to be initiated. I urge the members of the Georgia State House and Georgia State Senate to come together and do a joint bill to get that momentum started.
Thank you very much. Lisa, please ask a question to Annette Davis-Jackson.
Ms. Davis-Jackson, as a realtor, I'm sure you're aware of the economic plight of many homeowners during this current economic crisis. You bill yourself as a candidate who will help any way she can. Would you work to be a voice for those on the brink of economic collapse, and how would you use your voice in Washington?
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, but I'm not a realtor. I'm a businesswoman, and my specialties are facade development and curb appeal in commercial properties. What I do is go into underserved areas, particularly the low budget hotels, of which I've been an advocate for them, and convince them to cure their code violations. What will I do on the federal level? First of all, the United States of America went bankrupt in 1933. It put our mortgages in place, securitized them into the MERS system, right? So when we securitize them into the MERS system, Wall Street and the banks make money. Okay, so that's what I would do. Put in an institute, according to my website, Annette djackson.wix.com/US Senate. I would put in place the gold standard. The gold standard put in place because the United States is a reserve currency to the world, which gives power to the government. That would put into place of what I would do to stop foreclosures. Georgia is a non-judicial state.
The time is up. Thank you very much. Greg, we go back to you for a question to Richard Dien Winfield.
Yeah, Professor Winfield, you've sought a policy that many state Democrats have shied away from. That's the Green New Deal. Why do you think the Georgia electorate is ready to embrace that idea now?
Yeah, let me note, by the way, this is the first question I have received from any of the correspondents on this program. But actually, the voters in Georgia have been shown on polls to support a Green New Deal, if it is explained to them, because there are two sides to the Green New Deal. On the one hand, we really have to stop in its tracks the global climate crisis that is advancing towards us. I want to have it done by 2030 by giving the richest industry in human history, the fossil fuel industry, the deadline to transform themselves into a clean energy enterprise by 2030. The other side of the Green New Deal is that we guarantee employment at a fair wage to anyone whose livelihood depends upon the fossil fuel industry. So in this way, we save the planet and we save everyone's livelihood as well.
Thank you. Lisa, your question for John Fortuin.
Mr. Fortuin, your platform focuses on the pandemic and healthcare solutions. With the faction of our country saying enough has not been done by the current administration when it comes to transparency and security, what would you do specifically to give Georgians and the nation a better sense of security when it comes to the pandemic?
First of all, we should have prioritized testing of the virus, and asymptomatic people should have been tested at least every 2 weeks in order to get this thing under control. This is an impotent administration, or worse yet, an administration that saw the pandemic attacking poor people and people of color, and they were like, great, let it roll through and decimate the people who aren't supporting our extreme positions. So testing and common sense epidemic measures as the CDC used to be the world leaders on.
Thank you. Greg, please ask a question to Alan Buckley.
Yeah, Mr. Buckley, you focused the message in your campaign on reducing the national debt. How do you do that without slashing or eliminating programs that Georgians rely upon?
Well, thanks for the question. I'm the only candidate in this race that offers solutions to all the major problems. Check out buckleyforsenate.org. I offer reasonable reforms to entitlements, including the Financial Sanity Act, a bill that I drafted that gradually takes the Social Security normal retirement age and the Medicare eligibility age to age 70. Now, we adjust it every decade based on changing life expectancy, so everybody gets the same percentage of life coverage in terms of benefits. We keep Medicaid and Obamacare, but change Obamacare some, so people can fill that medical gap from 65 to 70, however they wish. And I also propose reforms to day-to-day entitlements, so we eliminate the ditch that's described on my website. I don't have time to describe it now, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Lisa, it's Deborah Jackson's turn for a question from you.
Ms. Jackson, you referred to supporting meaningful immigration reform. What does that mean specifically when there is a throng of immigrants here in Georgia who feel that they are living in a gray area?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. There's a couple of things. One is that we have also recipients, and so I think that it is necessary to legitimize their status so that they're not living in the state of uncertainty that they currently are. And then you have the 10 million people or more who are currently undocumented. And I think we need to develop a process that is reasonable in terms of reviewing the records of people and then seeing a path so that they can be to have their status actually legalized with the opportunity for citizenship at some point.
10 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the answer.
Greg, please ask a question to Kandiss Taylor.
Yeah, Ms. Taylor, as an educator, how would you guide schools struggling with how to reopen during the coronavirus pandemic?
Hey, Greg, I would say open the schools. I have my most needy population of schools of children that are in their houses and not at school. I'm worried about abuse. I'm worried that they haven't had a break from sexual abuse since March. I'm very concerned. Yes, we need to educate children, and that can be done somewhat online, over the internet, but it cannot prevent sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, mental and physical. And we have got to come together as a country. Some of these children in America, most of the children that are abused are not enrolled in school right now. They're virtual. It's a huge issue, and it's a travesty to our state. Shame on us. Shame on us for not having them in school. So I would say use common sense, wash your hands, do social distancing, do all the things we're doing, open up beautifully like the rest of our country.
Time is up. Thank you very much. And Lisa gets the final question in this round for Tamara Johnson-Shealey.
Ms. Johnson-Shealey, in recent months, we've heard a lot about criminal and social justice reform. You support climate justice reform. Define what you mean by that. And if you were to go to Washington, what issues would you be fighting for that would have a beneficial impact in the state of Georgia?
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for this forum, this debate today. So going back to climate justice, we have to be mindful that a lot of our urban communities, they suffer with toxic air, toxic soil, and I definitely want to address the need for our urban communities with climate justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the first portion of the debate. The candidates will now ask a question to an opponent of their choice. Candidates will have 15 seconds to ask the question, 45 seconds to respond, and 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Let's begin. And we just finished with Tamara Johnson-Shealey. You get the first question for one of your opponents.
Say that again. My apologies. I hear background noise.
You get the first question for one of your opponents here. We're starting the round now where you all can ask each other questions. So, Ms. Shealey, you're first. You have a question for one of your opponents.
Richard Winfield, I would like for you to speak more about reparations and how you feel about reparations. Richard Dean Winfield.
Yeah, I think reparations are due to people who have suffered from government-sponsored violations of rights that are recognized. But I do not think that descendants of victims deserve reparations. I think it's victims themselves, and we have millions of victims of Jim Crow and various kinds of government-sponsored discriminations. But we should keep in mind that ending systemic racism involves more than reparations. It involves nullifying the income and wealth gap between Black and white, as well as that between women and men. And to do that, we need to eliminate unemployment and poverty income with a federal job guarantee, putting people to work at $20 an hour and giving equivalent replacement income to those who cannot work, and then ensuring that all the things we need to advance our lives are available no matter how much wealth and income you have.
Thank you. That's time. Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson-Shealey. You have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
So from that answer, I do not believe that you support reparations. Reparations is a debt owed. It is a debt owed by America to those of us who are descendants of slavery in this country. And it stems from systemic injustices, from slavery to Jim Crow to convict leasing, black codes, redlining, all the systemic injustices that have been done against those of us who are descendants of slaves, and we're still living in that era today. Thank you.
Can I
Yes, a brief rebuttal. I'll give you 10 seconds. So it's good because she said apparently you don't support reparations.
Yeah, no, I do support reparations for victims. And there are plenty of victims alive who are suffered from redlining, from Jim Crow legislation, and from such things as unpaid labor for prisoners. On the other hand, anyone who is suffering any deficits.
Move on. John Fortuin, it's your turn to ask a question to one of your opponents, Mr. Fortuin.
Professor Winfield, I really respect your platform for the most part. I'm curious that you find that you want to run within the Democratic Party, since they continually sabotage progressive positions, and even the Iowa caucuses seem to have been deliberately sabotaged with an app. Do you think the Democratic Party will ever quit sabotaging not progressives who are really the majority of them face?
Look, there is a Democratic establishment that has fought tooth and nail against such progressives as Bernie Sanders and even Elizabeth Warren. But I think the efforts of Sanders in particular have shown that it's possible for a progressive candidate to buck the establishment, get massive support, and come close in 2 presidential races to transforming the party. Unfortunately, our system is one in which third parties have a very, very difficult time of getting through, given our majoritarian system. So I think the proper avenue, the most
10 seconds.
Practical avenue, is to try to reform the Democratic Party from within, which is what I'm attempting to do.
Mr. Fortune, do you have a rebuttal? You have 30 seconds.
I'd just like to point out that the Democratic Party, in filings in Broward County in a lawsuit, indicated that in writing multiple times and in verbal arguments that they can decide who the Democratic nominee is behind closed doors, smoking cigars, and the primaries seem to just be theater.
And time is up. Thank you, sir. Alan Buckley, it is your turn to ask an opponent a question.
Okay, for Kandiss Taylor, what are our nation's greatest short-term problem and long-term problem? And how do you think we should go about solving those problems?
45 seconds, Ms. Taylor.
Well, 2 of the issues I'm running on. So short term, I would say right now needs to be term limits. We need 2 terms, 1 to 2 terms. That is it for the Senate. If you can't get it done in 12 years, you're not getting it done. So we need term limits established immediately. And also we need a fair tax long term to bring ourselves out of the national debt that we're in that's making our dollar unstable, which is the primary reason why I'm running, because I care about our country and I do not want to see us lose everything that we have and we hold dear of our dollar not being stable and the world leaders choosing another currency to be the world currency. And so we need a fair tax. We all need the same skin in the game. And the only way to get that done is a fair tax.
Mr. Buckley, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal if you want one.
Well, I think COVID-19 is the greatest problem by far. I have offered solutions on my website, how to go about it to offer targeted relief that's much less than $1 trillion. And our greatest problem, I'm going to point out in a chart, our nation's debts are going to spiral out of control. That's what the GAO said in 2007, when our debt was less than $9 trillion. The GAO said our debts are going to spiral out of control. Now they're $27 trillion. Thank you.
Thank you. Valencia Stovall, please ask your question of an opponent.
My question is for Senator Loeffler, who's not on here, but she is an opponent. Why are you supporting voter suppression by not insisting that all candidates debate at one time to see who is the best qualified, that it shouldn't be decided by warped surveys?
Okay. As you noted, Senator Kelly Loeffler is not in this debate, so we will allow you to rebut whatever you think her answer might be or what you think her position is. Go ahead. 30 seconds.
Yes, it's unfortunate that the mainstream media has just about forgotten about all the candidates that are on the ballot. We all paid our qualifying fees because we felt that we should all be considered as candidates. And to be able to split up two debates when it could have been possible, everyone knew once we qualified that there were 21 candidates on the ballot. And for this is voter suppression, and it's not fairness in voting to allow all the candidates to be able to say their point of view and let the voters decide who they want to represent them in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Al Bartell, it's your turn to ask a question of an opponent.
Yes, my question is to Deborah Jackson. Deborah, the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. and in Georgia made a conservative effort to push people like you out of the party and ask you to end your campaign in terms of their pick. Isn't it time for you to come out and step on your own, like a powerful leader that you are, and become an independent candidate in Georgia?
In 45 seconds for Deborah Jackson.
All right, but thank you for that question. Yeah, I agree that unfortunately the way the system has been set up, that all the candidates have not gotten the fair coverage to demonstrate what their abilities are and let the voters actually decide. The main reason why I decided to run as a Democrat is because I believe in the democratic principles, as Mr. Winfield has said, that there is an opportunity to work to strengthen the party from within and to help bring a progressive message. And I would say that overall, I think there really needs to be a way for people who are outside of the party to be able to present a strong candidacy and let the people decide.
Thank you. 30 seconds for a rebuttal, Mr. Bartell, if you'd like one.
Yes, Ms. Jackson, your record is stellar. Your leadership is extraordinary. It is time for you to come and be an independent force in Georgia, the southeast region of the nation, and the United States of America.
Thank you for that. Richard Dean Winfield, you may now ask the next question of an opponent.
I'd like to ask John Fortuin the following. Why do you support universal basic income and not a federal job guarantee when UBI divides society into those who live on poverty basic income and the rest who get UBI and work income, whereas a federal job guarantee offers everyone who can work employment starting at $20 an hour while providing equal replacement of $41,600 per year to those who cannot work?
And 45 seconds to Mr. Fortune.
John, you're on silent.
Okay, and it sounds like Mr. Fortune, you're muted. Can you unmute your microphone? There you are.
There you are.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir. You have 45 seconds.
Actually, I do appreciate the federal job guarantee. However, having been in the computer field and seeing all the automation that's coming down the pike, the number of jobs that are going to be available are really going to decrease. I do seek a balance between your plank of the federal job guarantee and my plank for UBI, which is actually at a $2,000 a month figure for adults. And we are really in an economic crisis, and we need feasible solutions, and the CARES Act shows that we can afford UBI.
Mr. Winfield, you have 30 seconds for a rebuttal.
I want to say that admittedly, automation is going to take over most work that is mechanizable, but that still leaves all sorts of occupations that require a human touch a robot-proof kind of occupation, and all the kind of human care services, the arts, philosophy, etc. And I think that is where human work is going to be. And it's important to recognize that there is this division between those who live just on UBI and those who do not. You don't have that
10 seconds.
if you have federal job guarantee with equivalent replacement income. It's a much fairer result and also less expensive.
Thank you. Kandiss Taylor, it's your turn to ask a question of an opponent.
Okay, I'll ask Derrick Grayson. Mr. Grayson, I know you're a strong proponent of the Constitution. And so I want to know, when you get into this seat, what you're going to do to ensure the Constitution is protected 100% of the time.
45 seconds to Mr. Grayson.
I'll start by exposing rhinos, Republicans in name only. It's interesting to me how Dollar Milk series, and I guarantee you, will not ask the question of David Collins. Mr. Collins, if Thomas Massey can boast a 100% constitutional voting record and Rand Paul a 94% constitutional voting record, why is yours 59%? The problem, Ms. Taylor, is that many of these representatives, we already know what Democrats do. Big government, more spending, let's give out free stuff. But we know that conservatives masquerade as conservatives, but they are truly voting most of the time with Democrats. That's where our problem is. That's where the exposure needs to go.
And Ms. Taylor, a 30-second rebuttal if you want one.
Yes, I would love to. Thanks, Derrick. I agree. The Bible says that a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. So just say what you mean and mean what you say. If you're a Democrat and you're liberal, then you vote liberal. If you're conservative, be a conservative. And it's a huge issue. And it's a huge issue when he says it's offending the president because he did his job, but he didn't do his job when he was sitting in the seat of a U.S. congressman. It's a huge issue. And it's a huge issue to make millions of dollars on the COVID crisis and spend $50 million on your campaign and think you're going to buy a seat, because it's not going to happen. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Derrick Grayson, it's your turn to ask a question of an opponent.
Yes, I would like to ask Miss Annette Davis-Jackson a question. Miss Jackson, why do you think it is that most of these candidates we see running today never talk about the Constitution? It's almost like a preacher not talking about the words of Jesus Christ, whereas we see like Warnock talking about he's going to fight to keep abortion alive. Why is the Constitution that important?
And 45 seconds to Ms. Davis-Jackson.
Derrick Grayson, thanks for that question. The reason that the Constitution is not important because none of the politicians are getting the public to understand that they have unalienable rights by God. In 1776, the founding fathers put in place the Constitution along with the Declaration of Rights, the Bill of Rights. And guess what? We're not adhering to it. I'm sorry. We're not adhering to it because they don't want to. Cronyism and nepotism still exist.
And Mr. Grayson, you have 30 seconds for a response.
No response necessary. Dereliction of duty.
Thank you very much. Annette Davis-Jackson, it's your turn to ask a question of an opponent.
Yes. My question goes to Derrick Grayson. You're a proponent of the Constitution. How are you going to convince the population of Georgia that they are we the people? The government is spending their money, and how they need to get more involved to protect their money where they live.
Derrick Grayson.
Show them something different. Show them what they need to know, and the people will do something different. In a word, education. This is not being taught. The reason this debate is set up the way that it is, they know most people will be tuning in to the other debate and not hearing these important questions. How many times have you heard WSB, when they talk about Senate race, mention the name of Annette Davis-Jackson, Kandiss Taylor, Bartell? All of these people have great ideas, but the media knows that most people have been conditioned to not listen. They know they won't seek it out, and they will continue to beguile them with lies.
And 30 seconds to Ms. Davis-Jackson for a response. Ms. Davis-Jackson, are you there?
Yes, I am there. Thank you. Thank you,
go
Greg.
ahead. Sure.
When I look
30
at the
seconds.
media and I look at newspaper and I look at television, the reason that the people are not given the proper information is because of what the media prints. The media prints sometimes all of the candidates, but doesn't include all of the candidates' pictures. So it would be good for all of the media to present the candidates' pictures. And I promise you, everybody on this debate, they are the ones that should be the United States Senate
And the time is up.
of the state of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Deborah Jackson, you get the last question for an opponent. Go ahead.
All right. Well, my question is to Derrick Grayson. I've heard you describe yourself as an originalist in terms of interpreting the U.S. Constitution. Given that the Constitution provided that Black people were considered 3/5 of a person, how does originalism address the issue of racial injustice today?
45 seconds, sir.
Okay, I've never described myself as an originalist. I describe myself as a constitutionalist. The Constitution provides a remedy for fixing things that are broken, and the 3/5 clause was one of those things. I submit to you, Ms. Jackson, that had men not been corrupt and obeyed the spirit of the preamble, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, reaffirmed by Abe Lincoln when he said it included the Negro, we would not have needed to have a Emancipation Proclamation, 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, Civil Rights Act, or the Voting Rights Act. It is because of the corruption of men, because they refuse to yield to the will of the people who are the true leaders of this country. They are merely servants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And a 30-second response from Deborah Jackson.
Yeah, I would just say the reason that we had to have the Emancipation Proclamation is because that there was a civil war and that there was a big dispute within the country about the rights of Black people as basic, not citizens, but just as human beings. And so that is why we continue to have the issues that we do today within our communities and requires more stronger action to be taken, that we recognize the human dignity of Black people, and so that Black lives really matter.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our second round. For those just joining us, you are watching the debate between candidates for U.S. Senate special election. Due to the number of qualified candidates, they've been divided into two debates. And we'll now go back to the panel to ask questions until we run out of time. I'll determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. The candidates may raise their hand if they feel they should get a rebuttal. Now, due to the number of candidates and our time remaining for this round, we want to get on as much as possible. Candidates will have 20 seconds to answer their questions in this round. Lisa Rayam, you get the first question in this round.
My first question is for Kandiss Taylor. Ms. Taylor, over the weekend, President Trump once again said how adamant he was that schools should reopen, even though we're still in the midst of a pandemic. Recently, APS put off in-person learning until at least January due to the pandemic. In Washington, what would your messaging be regarding kids, schools, the pandemic, specifically as it relates to Georgia?
20 seconds.
Well, like I said earlier, the schools need to open, and President Trump's exactly right. And he's not a counselor. He's not in the school seeing what I'm seeing, but I am there. I'm working class America, and that's why I'm the best person for this job, because I know what it's like living on a budget and pay bills. And I'm telling you, the students are struggling at home, being abused, not being fed, not being clean. We had one outside of Macon that died because of head lice, because of them sucking the blood and anemia. It's a huge problem, and we got to do better.
Time's up. Thank you very much. Greg Bluestein, it's your turn to ask a question of a candidate.
And my question is for Representative Stovall. You were elected to the state legislature as a Democrat, but you're running for U.S. Senate as an independent now. What explains your decision to switch parties?
20 seconds.
The reason I switched parties to an independent is that the issues that we are facing are not Republican issues. They're not Democratic issues. They are people issues. And for me, many times I've had to stand for what I believe is right, which has been against the Democratic Party, and I've been ostracized. But I'm going to continue to be a champion for all Georgians, and that is why I decided to run as an independent.
Thank you.
Lisa Rayam, you're next.
Mr. Buckley, earlier you referenced possible debt going out of control. If that were in fact the case, federal dollars would suffer here in Georgia. What would you choose, healthcare over education or education over healthcare?
I wouldn't choose one over the other. I offer a tax proposal that took me 3 years to put together that forces balanced budgets in years we're not experiencing a recession or worse. The DC politicians have to figure out how to make the numbers work. Education should be handled locally. We don't need a Department of Education. We spent $71 billion on it last year. We've got no better results since the Department of Education was created in the 1970s. Healthcare, I offer market-based solutions to the problems. I don't have time to explain them right now. Sorry.
Thank you. Greg Bluestein, back to you.
Yeah, Mr. Fortuin, you talk of a coming greater depression in your campaign platform. What do you propose U.S. senators do right now to stave it off?
They should immediately implement UBI or the Dien solution of having employers work as a pass-through, passing through 90% of their prior wages directly from the federal government. And we do need to protect the agricultural economy and food distribution economy as a priority. But, we are in for a big ongoing problem.
Time is up. Thank you, sir. Lisa Rayam, back to you.
Valencia, Stovall, earlier you referred to this group of panelists as the forgotten candidates. What are your thoughts about the forgotten voter when it comes to the issues of voter suppression in our state? Do you believe that still exists, and will that factor into the November elections and this special election?
Yes, there are some forgotten. I think better education, making it more accessible for people to register to vote. We should allow registration by online or same-day registration. And just like we do for what we're in now with the early voting, we should allow for that same process when people are actually voting. So they should be able to vote anywhere in Georgia, but using the same technology that we're doing. That way that would cut down on those missed voters.
Thank you. Greg Bluestein, back to you for the next question.
Yeah, this question is for Deborah Jackson. Mayor Jackson, can you talk about the lessons you've learned from your experience as Lithonia's leader and how that would translate to Washington if you're elected?
Thank you. Basically, as the mayor, I had the opportunity to not only develop legislation and present it to the city council, but to also implement it. And so being a being a U.S. senator is about developing and implementing legislation. I also have the ability to interact with people from all walks of life. And I think that we really need people who are in the Senate that bring a level of experience. And as the mayor, I have that.
Thank you. Lisa Rayam, back to you for the next question.
Derrick, Grayson, with the pandemic in mind and the saying that the children are a precious resource, what are your thoughts and what would your messaging be in Washington regarding kids returning to school now during a pandemic?
Thank you for the question. My first push would be to ensure that the truth is put out. We are getting more and more truthful information as each day goes by because the pandemic shutting down our economy is backfiring. Open up our schools, open up Georgia as the Florida, allow people to get back to work and let us get back to rebuilding our economy because this was not the correct course of action. So,
thank you. Greg Bluestein, back to you for the next question.
Yeah, this question is for Annette Jackson. The pandemic has widened the economic gap in Georgia and put a strain on small businesses. What can lawmakers do to help them?
Well, the thing about it, what can lawmakers do to help them? And we're talking about the federal level. So we're talking about the United States Senate, which produces landmark legislation. What they have to do is they have to do a forensic and financial audit to figure out what businesses did get the pandemic monies, the PPE, the disaster loan. They have to figure out who got it and why did they get it, etc. That's going to help not only Georgia, but the United States of America, because some people got it who should not have gotten it or received it. So small business is a crux of America. So we're going to have to do a forensic and a financial audit of the United States of America regarding the disaster funds.
Time is up.
Lisa Rayam, back to you for the next question.
Richard Dean Winfield, what are your thoughts on the possibility of Roe v. Wade becoming vulnerable if a conservative justice is appointed to the nation's highest court?
Well, I think we have to recognize that the packing of the courts, both in the Supreme Court and the federal courts, that has been achieved under Donald Trump threatens many, many rights of individuals in the United States. And there's a systemic problem in our federal judiciary system where a single administration can lock in the public to a particular judicial philosophy for decades to come. We need to change that, end lifetime terms, have staggered fixed terms of 10 years, and we need to have additional appointments on all levels of the federal judiciary.
Thank you. Greg Bluestein, next question to you.
Yeah, Ms. Johnson-Shealey, this question is for you. What measures would you propose to overhaul or improve the criminal justice system across the country?
Thank you, Greg, for that question. I definitely think we need to look at the locking up and throwing away the key. We have these mandatory minimums, and we're putting people in prison for small crimes, and we're incarcerating them for long periods of time. So I definitely want us to look at, the length of time that we're actually incarcerating people. This cash bail. There's a lot of ways that we need to address criminal justice reform here in this nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lisa Rayam, the next question comes from you.
John Fortune, in terms of the Black Lives Matters movement, do you believe Black Lives Matter? Yes or no? And explain.
I absolutely believe that Black Lives Matter. I have a multiracial family. I believe in human rights. The Black Lives Matter agenda is actually a subset of the human rights agenda, and we need to push for human rights for all folks and raise the horrible standards that the Black community has been subjected to in this racist country.
Thank you.
Greg Bluestein, the next question from you, please.
Yeah, Scott, if it's okay, I'd like the next question to be to all of the 10 candidates we have here, maybe 20 or 30 seconds each.
Is Al Bartell going to get asked a question?
Yeah, Al, how about I start with you on this one? Okay. And I want all of you to speak on this, but money. It's an issue that each of you have mentioned or at least suggested being a major issue in this race. So far, more than $160 million has been spent on TV ads alone in Georgia's 2 U.S. Senate races. Is this glut of spending a fact of life, or do you want something to be done about it if you're elected to the U.S. Senate? Al, starting with you.
It's a fact of political marketing strategy coming out of Washington, D.C. They pumped money in Georgia, only selected a couple of candidates from a couple of parties, and decided that Washington, D.C. was going to control the vote in Georgia. It is an unconscionable act, and the people of Georgia will have to make a difference in the Georgia General Assembly and the U.S. Congress. And it's time for us to have a movement to do that. And I think it's unfair for me to have an answer my question doing the all-round rather than get an individual question like everybody else got.
Alan Buckley, the same question to you.
Well, it's a problem when Kelly Loeffler gets appointed because she's rich and can fund her own campaign. And, the two major parties are destroying the nation. I showed you the charts a couple of times. And like I said, the debts are going to spiral out of control, and then we'll all be miserable. And it's unfortunate. Let me say this. I have analyzed virtually every single major problem. I have not come up with a better solution to our current system with respect to this issue, but I have with respect to every other major issue. Thank you.
Thank you. John Fortune, the same question to you. This is our lightning round.
Great. We need to repeal Citizens United It was wrongly decided. I support the move to amendment to repeal that. We need to publicly fund campaigns. It would be way cheaper if we publicly fund campaigns and end the regulatory capture that is destroying the regulations that are supposed to protect our health and welfare.
Thank you, Derrick. Grayson, the same question to you.
I warned Georgia that Johnny Isakson would announce a retirement, and he didn't do it before the election. He did it after, and here we are in this jungle primary. Kelly Loeffler bought her seat so that she could get on the SEC board so that they could bring in the next wave of fiat money. And Doug Collins is responsible, along with Mike Lee, for the silencing of conservative voices. Yes, money is a problem, and yes, money needs to be removed.
Time is up.
And
Thank you. Annette Davis-Jackson, the same question to you, please. Ms. Davis-Jackson, you there?
Can't hear you.
Okay, we can't hear
We'll go
her,
back to her. Deborah Jackson, the same question to you then. We're going alphabetically here.
Say the question again.
Repeat the question for us, please.
Yeah, basically, $160 million plus has been spent on TV ads in Georgia's 2 U.S. Senate races alone. Does there need to be some sort of campaign finance overhaul to do something about that, or should it is just part of a fact of life of campaigning now?
Go ahead.
I believe that it's a part of campaigning now because guess what? Who makes the money? The media organizations make the money. So they're putting it out because there are certain people who can spend the money. Overhaul, yes, I believe there should be overhaul, but guess what? I ask the people, don't be hoodwinked over the campaign ads because the campaign ads are false compared to what they're going to do for the people.
Okay, thank you very much. And unfortunately, we're out of time, and we're going to have to go to the closing statements now. Thank you all for a very illuminating 45 minutes. That's all the time we have for questions. Now, each candidate will have 45 seconds for a closing statement. Richard Dien Winfield, you get the first closing statement.
To overcome our pandemic, economic, racial justice, and climate crises, we must elect a government that guarantees our social rights to jobs at fair wages, health care, and a livable planet, decent housing, quality education, worker empowerment, and legal care. Our whole political process is ever more corrupted by the power of money, where only candidates awash with funds have wide access to the voters. Our press could weaken the grip of money if it fulfilled its democratic duty to inform citizens about every candidate's policies. The press has betrayed this duty, disempowering voters whose right to vote is empty if they cannot know for what they're voting. So check out my campaign website, winfieldforsenate.com, my podcast, America Unchained, and my latest book, Democracy Unchained. Let's overcome the blockages of opportunity that shackle our democracy. Vote Winfield for Senate.
Thank you very much. Kandiss Taylor, it's your turn. A closing statement, please.
$100,000 limit on the campaigns would ensure that a normal person like me, an educator from South Georgia, can run and be competitive with a billionaire and somebody that owns the New York Stock Exchange. So that needs to happen so that we can raise money and we can have fairness there. My name's Kandiss Taylor. I'm a middle-class mother and educator, and I'm running because I'm sick of career politicians and I'm sick of not having my voice heard. I'm tired of going and choosing between the lesser of evils, and that's why I put 50,000 miles on my car since April, because I care what the people say. I care what you say. If nobody's coming to your county and hearing what you have to say, they don't care. I do care. I'm the one you've been waiting for.
Thank you. Al Bartell, it's your turn. Your closing statement, please.
We have to have a way to have neighborhood leaders, community leaders, faith leaders, and small business leaders have the same access to public policy in Georgia and in America as lobbyists, special interest groups, and corporations. We cannot afford to send another corporate executive to Washington, D.C. to represent the feelings, emotions, and commitments of all of Georgia. So I'm clear that this special election allows us in Georgia to have a chance to reset the dial. So I want all of you to join me in bringing a new perspective to Washington, D.C. I am so clear that it is time to have neighborhood leaders, community leaders, faith leaders, and small business leaders have the same access to public policy as corporations in the state of Georgia.
That's the time. Thank you very much, sir. Derrick, Grayson, you may go next. Thank you.
Yes, you heard my name. You've heard my smoke. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about myself. Ms. Jackson, I just wanted to tell you, I agree with you. Because of the corruption of men, yeah, we've had to do those things. Folks, this debate is relegating us to the lessers. What you're going to hear afterwards is going to be the media promoting the debate that is going to follow with the people that they want to lead you down the path to vote for. While I don't agree with all of my opponents in this particular panel, I do believe in their sincerity in wanting to help the people. There are some great ideas on here that I agree with. I suggest you do something different because they aren't going to tell you. GraysonForGeorgia.com. Thank you for paying attention if they even promote this.
Thank you very much. Deborah Jackson, it's your turn.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share my views with the community, even though it has been very limited given the format. But as a former mayor, city council, I have experience. And given the chaos that is currently existing in Washington, D.C., we need a representative that is able to hit the ground running on day one to serve the needs of the people of Georgia. We have a number of items that are impacting us, such as healthcare, employment, education, small businesses.
10 seconds.
The pandemic has exacerbated the situation. And so we need representatives that are prepared to act and act quickly to meet the needs of our people. I am Deborah Jackson, DeborahForGeorgia.com, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alan Buckley, please give your closing statement.
My Save Tomorrow campaign is about making tomorrow as good as or better than today. We have major problems. Unlike my opponents, I offer market-based solutions to all the problems, including the potentially crushing national debt. Solving them will require reasonable sacrifice. If you are unwilling to make a reasonable sacrifice for the benefit of our nation, I am not your candidate. Why vote for me? Because by doing so, you'll have acted to help save our country. Loeffler and Collins are Trump worshipers. Trump's enacted policies added $3.9 trillion to the national debt in his first term, and his second term's plans would add another $5 trillion. Biden's plans would add $5.6 trillion. Warnock will vote with Biden. Please help me and help the U.S. Thank you.
Thank you. Valencia Stovall, it's your turn for closing statement.
I'm an independent candidate, a mother of two, Georgia born and raised. I'm the best qualified because I have 8 years experience as a proven nonpartisan legislator, 30 years experience as a small business owner, and 30 years experience of bringing resources to the communities. We've been placing bandages on issues, but the real solutions must come from DC. My focus will be 3 areas: economic opportunities, government efficiency, global stewardship. We must truly work together to develop community-driven policies and take us into the future. I'm number 16 on the ballot, a champion for all Georgians. Stovall, that's all. I believe with the economic opportunities that education has to be reformed and parents should have the choice to decide what's the best education setting for their children. Thank you.
Thank you. Tamara Johnson-Shealey, you're next with a closing statement, please.
Thank you for this debate this afternoon. Again, I am Tamara Johnson-Shealey, your candidate for the United States Senate. We can't keep sending the same people to Washington. Politicians beholden to big donors, big corporations, and political favors. We have enough of them. We need to send people to Washington who are going there to work hard for you, who will meet your demands and fulfill your expectations. Politicians that are different. You have a lot of candidates to choose from, but I am your candidate for the United States Senate. I am Tamara Johnson-Shealey. Thank you.
Thank you. John Fortuin, it's your turn for a closing statement, please.
Hello, Georgia. My name's John Fortune. I'm the nominee of the Green Party. I'm running for a real Green New Deal. I'm running against America's rigged systems, running against our rigged healthcare system, running against an economy rigged for the 1%, and running for universal basic income, UBI. UBI to save our economy for the people, not the 1%. I'm running against a rigged justice system that's really an injustice system, a system that criminalizes Black lives, people of color, and poverty.
10 seconds.
I'm running to ensure my multiracial family can enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm John Fortune at fortuneforgeorgia.com. Thank
you. And a final closing statement from Annette Davis-Jackson.
Hello, my name is Annette Davis-Jackson, AnnetteDJackson.wix.com/US Senate. I'll tell you, I'm here to institute the gold standard with the President of the United States. And if you heard his speech the other night, he did not endorse Doug Collins or Kelly Loeffler. What that says to the citizens is that this race in this particular bunch is open up to a candidate like me, Annette Davis-Jackson, historically Black college graduate, Spelman College. You need to vote for a Spelman College graduate because I will not only make history, but let me tell you, seniors are important. Our veterans are important. The President of the United States did an executive order to put all organizations in place at Washington to say, look, let's stop fraud, waste, and abuse. Georgia is a non-judicial state. There are so many lawyers taking people's homes due to foreclosure. We need to stop that on the federal level. I'll tell you, a polished Georgia is what we need. And Jackson for U.S. Senate.
Thank you very much, and thank all of you. That concludes our debate. We'd like to remind voters that Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Don't forget to turn in your absentee ballot if you've requested one. And early voting in person is going on now. Thanks to the candidates and the panel for participating in this debate. I'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club and Georgia Public Broadcasting for arranging today's debate. For more information on the full schedule of debates, please visit atlantapressclub.org. I'm Scott Slade from 95.5 WSB. Thank you for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series. Have a great day.